At noon, Dustin sat in Ruth's car, and the two of them arrived at the Harmon estate with ease. As one of the fabulous five, the Harmon family's headquarters were luxurious. It had a man-made lake, a garden with artificial hills, farms, wineries, and numerous magnificent villas. Hundreds of guards patrolled the perimeters, and dozens of staff worked there, fully demonstrating the power of an aristocratic family. Staring at the garden, Dustin pondered about the annual family gathering happening tomorrow. "We're here." The silver Bentley slowly pulled into the entrance of the main villa. As soon as they got out of the car, they spotted Jessica and two servants waiting for them at the entrance. "You're here." Jessica gave Dustin a look over and asked coolly, "Yesterday, you said that my husband was poisoned by mystic poison. Is that true?" "You wouldn't have looked for me if it weren't," Dustin answered, making Jessica narrow her eyes. She would never have sought him out if her husband, Hector, hadn't succumbed to the odd illness. Even the doctors in their family couldn't find the cause of the problem. "Let me ask you again. Are you sure you can cure him?" Jessica asked again. "I'm not sure. That depends on the severity of his sickness. If it hasn't progressed too far, it'll be easy to treat, but it'll be hard if it has." Dustin didn't promise her anything. "Follow me." Jessica frowned and spun around to lead the way. Dustin and Ruth quickly followed her, and they soon arrived at a ward full of medical equipment. Many specialists were gathered there as they tried to come up with a treatment plan while Hector lay unconscious on the bed. His once charming face had turned blue, and his lips had turned a shade of purple from the powerful poison. Dustin approached the bed and took Hector's pulse before checking his eyes and mouth. He was now sure that Hector had been poisoned by incredibly potent poison. "Dustin, how's my dad? Can you treat him?" Ruth asked tentatively. "It's a little tricky, but I can try," Dustin answered after thinking about it. "Try?" Jessica frowned. "This is his life we're talking about, and you're telling me you'll try? Are you joking?" "Mrs. Harmon, this isn't any regular poison. We'll have to take a risk if we want to save him," Dustin explained. With how serious Hector's condition was, it'd be a miracle if they could even save his life. "That's not what I want to hear. I want my husband to recover completely," Jessica hissed. "She's right. If you can't do it, let us treat him." Suddenly, a group of people entered the room. They were led by a chubby, middle-aged man, followed by Quentin and a voluptuous woman wearing a dress. "What are you guys doing here?" "Trent." Jessica was surprised. The Harmon family had 3 brothers. The eldest was Trent Harmon, the middle was Jacob Harmon, and the youngest was Hector Harmon. As the most capable brother, Hector ended up being the head of the family. "I heard Hector had fallen ill, so I sought out a famous international doctor." Trent gestured to someone behind him, and a blond man in a coat walked forward, proudly carrying a case. "This is Dr. Peter Shillingford," Trent introduced with a smile. Dr. Peter is one of the best doctors in the world, and is currently a professor at Harvard Medical School. He's known for treating all sorts of illnesses. "I'm sure Hector will be safe now that he's here." "A professor at Harvard?" Jessica's face lit up when she heard that. It was easy to imagine how excellent Peter's skills must be to be a professor at the world's best medical school. There was no way the doctors in their country could be better than him. "What are you waiting for, Rhys? Step aside. There's no way your measly skills can compete with Dr. Peter." Trent sneered. "I'm not underestimating him, but he won't be able to treat this," Dustin replied calmly. The poison inside Hector was made up of a combination of witchcraft and parasitic poison. No matter how advanced Western medicine might be, there was no way the doctor would be able to treat this. "Humph. What a fool," Quentin snapped. "Just because you're a loser doesn't mean Dr. Peter is. Go away. Don't delay Hector's treatment." "Jessica, what on earth were you thinking? How could you trust a quack doctor? What would you do if Hector ended up suffering side effects? Who would take the responsibility for that?" Trent demanded, displeased. "You're right." Jessica smiled sheepishly. She turned around and told Dustin, "Dustin, get out of Dr. Peter's way. Mrs. Harmon, I promise I can save Mr. Harmon's life, but I can't say the same for someone else." Dustin warned. Don't tell me you think you're better than Dr. Peter. What a joke. Quentin sniggered. Dr. Peter is one of the best international professors of medicine. How about you? You don't even have a medical license. What gives you the courage to challenge Dr. Peter? Things from overseas aren't necessarily better. Besides, traditional medicine isn't inferior to modern medicine. Dustin retorted. I've heard of traditional medicine before. It's the thing people use to trick patients, isn't it? Peter's smug voice rang cut. His intonation wasn't the best, but his words could still be heard clearly. You're right. I knew you'd be able to tell. Quentin gave Peter a thumbs up and smiled. Modern medicine is the best. Traditional medicine is old news by now. People only use it to trick others nowadays. I don't mind you looking down at me, but you shouldn't look down on traditional medicine. Ignorant people like you don't even know how powerful traditional medicine can be. Dustin narrowed his eyes. Why don't we have a small competition since you seem unconvinced? Peter smirked. How? Dustin. See this patient right here? We'll come up with our own treatment plans. Whoever treats him the quickest wins. The person who loses has to admit that they're nothing but a fraud and quit practicing medicine. Peter taunted. Are you sure you want to put the stakes so high? Dustin raised an eyebrow. Why? Are you afraid? Peter leered. I'll let this matter go if you admit that traditional medicine is merely a fraud. Afraid? Dustin shook his head. Well, I am slightly afraid that you might burst out crying.